Well, howdy, folks. Welcome once again to the Retro Podcast. Guys in their 50s and 60s talking about the 70s and 80s. And here to join me, as always, is my buddy Al. Hey, Al.
Hello, guys.
And tonight, and on audio, well, again, I'll say it again, like I've said for the past 10 weeks. I am working on the audio podcast. I mean, this is an audio podcast version, and pretty soon they'll all be uploaded. For those of you guys listening live, if you're listening in the audio podcast, welcome to our 10th episode. Or is it our 9th episode? Did I incorrectly name it? I think I did, because I think this is our 10th episode. Well, anyways, so my apologies, folks. Let me see what, let me make sure. Might be our 11th episode. Anyway, whatever.
I will double check it.
While Al is double checking, I'll just say
This is our 11th show. 70's license plates and car styles.
Yep.
Two keys for one car.
Which actually is going to be car talk more than anything else.
Car talk.
Welcome, folks. We're going to talk today about the cars of the 70s and 80s. The cars you first drove, all the fun stuff. And let me start off by, since you mentioned license plates, I'll start off with a little story about my buddy Steven and I. My buddy Steven Solomon, my best friend growing up, we used to have this little ritual. Like kids do. Okay, for those of you young kids today that have, and I'm talking now. This time, young kids normally means under 40. This time, it means young kids under 20. For those of you kids that just did not grow up with the cowboys and Indians world, playing with your neighbors' kids along the street, or have outdoor things to do, I'll share this story with you because I mean, there's nothing like the old memories. My buddy and I, Steven, we lived behind a school, a public school. Now, the public school back then, now it's nothing but it used to be an elementary school. Now it's an elementary and middle school. It is, and it is all parking lot, multi-level parking lot. Before, it used to be one small little elementary school, local elementary school with a huge field. I mean, we're talking probably about 10 acres. Huge for us in the city who live on 75 by 60 foot plots of land, basically quartered 6 to quarter acres, 6 acres, not quarter, 6 acre lots. Anyway, this is Miami. We walked down to the end of the block. The block was 2 by 8 of those lots big. So walked to the end of the block, which was our busy street. Now, when we were young, we weren't allowed to cross our busy street. I don't know about you guys, but it can't go past 16th Street. Oh, that was a busy street. And it wasn't that busy. It was 2-lane road, one direction each way. But it was busy enough that cars came by, and Steven and I would sit there and play a game of identifying the cars, see which one of us could identify the cars first. He would beat me by a long shot. I couldn't identify half the cars. I don't know how, until I found out years later he used to go to car shows and stuff like that, and he's intelligent and very attentive, but
loved car shows.
I mean, we're talking, I was 8, 10 years old, maybe 12. And so I wasn't really into anything except playing games. So I remember vividly looking at a 1977 Corolla. There used to be a lot of those. 77, 78 Corollas.
Toyota Corolla. Huh?
Toyota Corollas, a lot of those. Anyways, the best part about it was while Steven was very good at the cars, I was very good at telling him what license plate was behind the car. In Florida, 1WW meant four-door sedan. They all began with 1WW. It was 6 digits, and it was 1WW and 3 numbers. That's how few cars there were back then. 60s and it changed later in the 70s, but in the early 70s, or actually it changed later in the 80s, but in the early and mid 70s, that's how it was. 1W was a sedan, was a 2-door sedan. 1WW was a 4-door. Cadillacs were all 1WW and stuff. There was a 1G/H. I always thought it was strange that they put a fraction on that was a van. There was a lot of white cargo vans and work vans. Didn't matter what kind of van. If it was a van, it had 1G/H. It was a 1, and then it had a little G/H. And back then, since we're the orange state or the Sunshine State, but
Sunshine State, yes,
we had basically our plates were white and orange letters on them. Now we have a nice big orange on our states, and it's green letters because it's all reflective and everything. But regardless, so I remember the license plates. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys remember the license plates from your youth, Al?
I don't know. For some reason, my youth was 20, 30 years ago, and it kind of eludes me. But I was in Illinois during my youth, and in Florida first, then Illinois. And I certainly remember the Sunshine State, but I remember orange and white plates back then. And when we moved to Illinois, I think the colors changed back and forth. But then I moved to Texas,
right?
And it was white and black.
Yep, white and black Texas plates.
And, yeah.
Well, let me take a moment to say hello to the our guests out in the chat room stuff. Michael Keene, good to see you. Let's see who we have. We got Steve Carmichael. Great to have you visiting our little show here. And let's see who else do we have there. We got Mitchell. Always happy to have you every week. I love having Mitchell here. He always brings out.
She is such a good room knitter. I mean, she does some stuff with.
Now, is it Mitchell or is it Michelle?
No, it's Mitchell.
It is Mitchell. Okay, good. So yeah, I keep calling it from the name, but she, my apologies, always brings out the most fantastic memories.
Yes.
Of the 70s and 80s that I just gloss over in my mind, and all of a sudden she goes, "How?" Every time she says something, it's like, "How did I not think of that?" That's it's one of those feelings and stuff. Dave, good to see you. Likewise.
Hey, the Patrick's out there too.
And here you go. And Patrick, good old Patrick from Patrick's Workshop. Yes. See, there she goes again. Mitchell just said she remembers the 1976 bicentennial.
Yes.
On the nose, because absolutely during the 407 years ago, good old commercials, 1776 to 1976. Man, I was just such a vibrant time in my life.
Can I interject this? Since she brought up the 1776, the 1976 bicentennial plates.
Yeah.
Also, too, the cars during that period, they came out with bicentennial packages, red, white, and blue. The one that I remember the most. One of the ones that I remember the most is the Mustang 2. Came out in a red, white, and blue package. It was sporty, yet it was still, I don't know, celebrative of
That's funny. It's an interesting. I draw a blank on that completely. My car was my first car. Good segue. My first car was a 76 Monte Carlo. It was a 76 Monte Carlo. It was Fuddpucker green.
Oh boy.
I don't know what kind of green it was. It was green. It was like a shiny metallic avocado green. In fact, I'll show you a picture of it because I happen to have one. I'll bring that up in a second for those of you guys watching. For you guys on the audio podcast, just imagine a white top, Fuddpucker green Monte Carlo with white bucket swivel seats. Oh, I loved those swivel seats. You can get out of your car by just pulling the lever down and just rotating and just walking right out the side door. It's fantastic. But yeah, the keys. Do you remember when we had one round key and one square key? The square key would turn on the car. The round key was for the doors only.
Yes. In fact, the vehicle that's behind me right now has got a square key for the ignition and a round key for the trunk. And honestly, I haven't used it in such a long time that I can't remember what the doors had. I guess the doors were also round, but that right there, that's a Mustang? That's a 68 Mustang.
68 Mustang, folks.
That is bad. But one of these days, I promise, one of these days, that sucker will drive right out of the garage the same way that it drove in 10 years ago.
Someday. Yeah, speaking of which, Steve Carmichael had a 76 Mustang, yellow and black with a black vinyl top. Let me see if I can pull that picture up of the
yellow with a black vinyl top.
Yellow with
I don't know. Belushi comes to mind, Jim. In the B skit in Saturday Night Live. Sorry, man. That's the first thing that just came to mind.
The B skit. Oh man, those are great times. 76. Let me see. Now, let me see. Did the Monte Carlo have the Monte Carlo had a 350 Chevy. 350 small block. It was fantastic. A V8. Was that big block? My mind went blank. It was a 350 Chevy. It was I love that. I love that engine. In fact, I would have to say that the majority of the cars that I've owned, I had a Chevy van with a 350. I had a Chevy pickup with a 350. I had a GMC with a 350. I had a boat with a 350.
Oh my God!
It was a Mercruiser, but it was a 350. It was a Mercruiser 300 horse, which was a 350 Chevy small block. Those were great. Those my Trans Am, my Pontiac Trans Am had a Chevy 350 in it, and I ran that thing. This was 1983. I had a 1983. Let's talk about my Trans Am real quick. Now, my Trans Am, for those of you who don't know, it was the kit car from Knight Rider. Was an 82, officially an 82, which was the first year that the Trans Ams came out with that model. Oh, by the way, I am a fan of the old the 76, the big huge hood Eagle.
The Smokey and the Bandit version?
The Smokey and the Bandit version. Yes. Nothing. I was so jealous of my classmate Ralph Suarez for having one of those black with the eagle on. Gorgeous.
The gold eagle. I love that thing.
Well, the Trans Am I had, but in fact I liked it so much I got a Trans Am. Probably partially because of him, partially because of Smokey, partially because of Kit. But I did buy the fiberglass front, which covered up the lights. The Trans Am normally the bumper, that front plastic bumper, went up straight to meet with the hood, and it dropped down with the lights that popped up. It dropped down so the lights in the front of it said Pontiac. Well, this was the opposite. This little kit thing met up with the lights. So the lights weren't seen, but it dropped down in the middle to have a oh yeah, and my cousin points out, he just texted me, it wasn't an Eagle, it was a Firebird, which obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Firebird. That's right. I mean, it was the Pontiac Firebird.
It was the Pontiac Firebird Trans Am.
Sure.
The middle section dropped down, and if you didn't have the lights that came with the kit, then you could see straight into the radiator. But I had the lights. There were basically 8 trailer lights, 8 red trailer lights, and I made up a little contraption with my little speed dial so I can make it go faster and slower. In the 5 years that I owned that car, I did not realize, nor did I ever get pulled over for running those lights. Well, I never ran them when I drove it because it's illegal. It's completely illegal to have them. But whenever I had friends at CB breaks and stuff back in the old CB days, when I had we would meet every Wednesday at a Denny's parking lot and here in Miami in a major intersection, and there were tons of us, and everybody knew me as you know, I mean, the guy with the kit car, and good times. Lousy car. It was, if it slipped, and it did slip with I crashed that car 3 or 4 times, and it was always the same thing. It was always the tires would give on a wet road or a wet grass, and it would become an arrowhead. There was no gaining momentum with that car. It was heavy in the front, light in the back, and it was just basically was an arrowhead once the tire. Not a good design. Great design aerodynamically, you know, but fantastic. And I once went, again, my cousin's in my ear here reminding me, I went once. How long do you think it took me to get from Miami to Disney World?
Miami to Disney World. That's about a 4-hour drive going the speed limit, right?
Correct.
2 hours?
Well, on the way back, I made it in 2 with an average of 90 miles an hour. On the way up, I was averaging 107 miles an hour, and I made it in an hour and a half with my brother, with my friend John Moore, and my other buddy, that was his friend John Moore, and my best friend and godfather to my child Steve. I'm sorry, Jim. My God, my mind is going. But anyway. That was decades ago, so statute of limitations and all. But I would imagine that the cops, that the policemen that were on the road, probably said that guy's just gonna. You know, you do stupid things when you're
young and invincible.
16 years old. I mean, we're talking. Right. What is that? 30 years ago? Close to 30 years ago.
40.
40 years ago. Holy cow. Yeah. Darn, I was hoping to give myself that. Wow.
Yeah, sorry.
Wow.
Hey, Michael.
I was driving 39 years ago. That's incredible. Well, anyway, yeah, stupid stuff we do. And I bet you every policeman on the road, if there were any that day, and there probably were, that saw me go, that guy's just going to kill himself. I might as well just leave him, save him the trouble, you know, because I mean, sometimes, like I said, I blew the air conditioning on that car on the way up, and I'll tell you what happens when you floor the car. And this is how it was explained to me by the air conditioning mechanic. And when you floor the car, it goes into second gear. It shifts into a higher gear. At that point, supposedly, and I don't know if this is true, but this is what I've been told, the clutch disengages on the AC. All right, because it's revving high.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I was going so fast that revving so high that even when it would disengage, the speeds, the engine was revving so fast that it just basically blew the compressor.
Yeah,
not a good thing. But
no. So
good
Michael,
good to see you, Frenzy Wicked Truth. And let's see, anybody else has joined us on? Nobody else yet. And so, yeah, what were some of your experiences with your first or second car? That was my second car.
Let me interject here because Michael actually mentioned that the emblem, and I'm going kind of back a little bit, was, and I had forgotten about this, was a Firebird. It's a Phoenix. It's a Firebird, right?
Yes.
Does anybody remember what derogatory name they would call that Firebird?
Drawing a blank.
Screaming Chicken. The Screaming Chicken. And I remember that. I remember people would talk about and that was the most memorable automobile decal of all time. Was that, or is that Phoenix? Anyway, I just thought I'd interject that because I figured that was part of the nostalgia, the reminiscing. Some of you might know it, some of you might not. But anyway, first cars. Now I have to say that yes, I am a car guy for life. This is one of my favorite talk shows that's no longer on NPR.
Car Talk. I love those. I love those
NPR,
guys.
Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers. Okay.
Yep.
And anyway, I used to listen to them, and it was the neatest thing in the world. The first car I ever purchased, I bought for $10. It was a Ford Falcon 1963, I think. It was a 1963. It was up underneath a tree. The whole front end of the engine, it was, I believe, a 160 or a 200 cubic inch engine.
Yeah.
That's what I cut my mechanic teeth on. I've always worked on cars. Yes, I know that now I'm working on intergalactic spaceships and such. Hey, there's Javi's Monte Carlo.
This is my Monte Carlo. This is that beautiful Fuddpucker green Monte Carlo. And let me tell you, I was a geek even back then. Look, we're talking 1980, 1981. In fact, I bought my Trans Am in 83. So I had this car all the way through from 79 to 82. Look at those beautiful white walls. I loved white walls. There was I remember my Kelly Springfield guy used to always ask me, hey, which direction would you like the tires? Because
of course, out.
Yeah, in or out. And sure enough,
out.
Now they don't do that. In fact, when they stopped doing that, even on my Trans Am, I would take the little white ink, the white grease pencils, and do the raised letters. Yeah, because I love doing that.
Yes.
And speaking of old cars, and speaking of 1983, here is my cousin's car. My cousin's a great collector of classic cars
with raised letters, huh?
And this is a 1983 Jeep. I believe it's is that a CJ6 or CJ7? CJ6, I think. Anyway, I was just at the property. This was just taken last week, and so that's the backdrop is my my lot there. But this is one of his classic cars. He's got a number of them. I was hoping to get more pictures of all the different ones, but CJ5. It's a CJ5, and those were it's just some cool stuff. I mean,
what engine did that have? Because there was some of those that I have seen with 289 engines put in them.
I will let you know as soon as he.
They are beasts.
Yep. We were talking about that earlier, Frenzy. 76 Monte Carlo had the swivel bucket seats. The swivel bucket seats in the front were just fantastic, and the back seat, yeah, it's definitely. It was just so
nicely.
Yep. I had probably every radio that I could think of. I had a buddy of mine Lazaro, right? He had the 258 in there, in the Jeep.
In the Jeep inline.
Yep. And so
And see,
Michael Keane prefers World War II motorbikes.
That Falcon that I was talking about earlier had a 6 in it, but Chris mentions that he put he sold his 5 years ago, his 62 Falcon, but he dropped a 302 in it. Just the same as the Mustang that's behind me actually has a 289 from the factory. They were putting 289s in them. In fact, the Mustang and the Falcon are pretty much the same unibody construction.
Yeah.
It's the outside stuff that's different on them.
And Greg just chimed in from Facebook. He had a 70 Lotus Elan convertible. It's funny you mentioned that, Greg. My brother has got, well, it's not a 70. It's a lot newer, but he still has, and it's a big point of contention with me and him. My brother still has a Elan convertible at home. He bought that car as an investment, and it's been sitting at home. Well, I want him to sell it, already. He wants to keep it, but he doesn't have a garage or anything like that. He keeps it under a car cover. It has not remained in the best of condition. It's got very low miles on it, but it's not functioning at the moment. And let's just say it needs some work. And we're all getting older. I mean, he's had that thing for 20, 30 years now. I mean,
yes,
it's been a while.
I've had,
by the way,
that wreck behind me since I was
CJ7. Oh yeah, my other cousin has a 78 CJ7.
Jeeps are so fun.
Yeah, Jeeps are fun. I remember when. Where was it that you could buy a Jeep kit for $50? Army surplus.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because there was. I remember specifically talking to buddies of mine when I was young, and this was it Harbor Freight? No, it wasn't Harbor Freight. Which was the catalog that had all the Jeeps parts in it? That was J.C. Whitney.
Yeah, J.C. Whitney.
So, folks, speaking of J.C. Whitney, I don't even know if they're still around, but probably are. But J.C. Whitney and Company. You guys remember the J.C. Whitney catalogs? God,
good Chicago company.
I bought so much stuff from them. I had a van. It was a C50. It was
1915. And yes, they are still around.
I bought it. Yeah, Chris chimed in with J.C. Whitney. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, that was fantastic. Good evening, Aussie man. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hello, Aussie man.
And Jim Dockrell's here, and Chris Nealand as well. Yeah, it's man, I'm telling you, that J.C. Whitney catalog had every part under the sun. I bought. I traded. I had an old. Some 80's. I don't know what year. It was an old Ford truck, and it was, I wish I could describe it for the life of me. A box truck. It had a whole bunch of compartments on the bottom, right? Like you see on all those utility box trucks, but it had a very tall enclosed area, all metal, and it was like if it was some sort of ambulance, but very thin, very tall compartment in the middle. All the compartments were on the outside. Gray, fantastic, heavy as heck. Well, I didn't find it comfortable for my needs after I stopped working with my dad. I was on and off many years with my dad in construction. I stopped working with him. The foreman, one of my dad's foremen, said, "Hey, I'll trade you my Econoline van for it." And sure enough, great van. We swapped cars. He got that big box truck, which was perfect for his work. I got his it was a cargo van. I was planning on doing so much. I mean, decking it all out on the inside. I bought the parts from Chevy. I bought parts from J.C. Whitney. I bought parts from everywhere. And then my brother, and I love my brother to death, but one of the things that the van had was a slight oil leak. And before I got a chance to work on it and fix it, my brother borrowed the van, somehow burned out the engine. So it was sitting at home for 2 months. I'm here shopping around for another engine. I finally got my a hold of another engine. And my mom decides, in her infinite wisdom, we were living at home. We were in our early 20s or whatever. My mom decides, in her infinite wisdom, she just call a guy to pick it up. And they gave her $50 for it. No, she paid $50.
Oh, my goodness.
Take it away. It had all the parts inside to reconstruct it. I never bought the engine for it. I mean, to this day, it hurts just thinking about it. Because I really, really like that van. But it is what it is. Such is life. But, you know, spoiled kid, she bought me a new car. So
a new car.
You can't knock it. But still.
Yeah. I had a 67 Mustang Fastback.
Mm-hmm.
I needed a transmission for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out and found a 67 Mustang Fastback. And it was in Chicago. It was all rusty and stuff. And
yeah.
My parents told me, okay, now you can only have the one car. You can't have two. So I took and I sold the body.
Right.
Gave it to some friends that raised. And I wish to this day that I had that specific body, even though it's all ratty and stuff. I don't know. It does hurt. It definitely does hurt.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But, I mean, it is what it is. But I'm sure, I mean, my brother.
You can't have it all. You can't keep
later,
it all.
I'm sure he probably felt the same way about me when you're going to love this. It has kind of nothing to do with cars, kind of. My, I don't remember how old I was. I think I want to say it was probably the mid 80s or early 80s. About the same time, my brother got for Christmas a 3-wheeled ATV. He got a trike. It was fantastic. It was a beautiful blue. Back when they were only selling red ones, my mom went all out and got him a blue one. You know, okay, so he got a blue trike. Well, take your brother. Make sure your brother make sure that it's all right. Okay, fine. So I'm driving the trike. My brother's behind me. I had never driven a trike before. So I did not realize that you are supposed to lean to one side when you're turning, particularly if you're going very, very fast. And very, very fast on a trike. Well, I was doing about 25 miles an hour down our road, and it started shifting a little towards the swale. And sure enough, I go to turn, and this thing didn't turn. So I did whatever I could do, which is I hit the brakes. But by then, we were rolling straight into a parked car. And bam! Basically, the fork just bent in and shoved the big front wheel up into the thing. My mom said the trike was too dangerous and got something else for my brother. My brother never got never got his wonderful to drive his wonderful Christmas presents. So I love him dearly. I figure we're about even.
Yeah. Bikes are. I've never been a bike person. I love them. I like them, but yeah, I rather have 4 wheels on the ground as far as I'm concerned. And even that's dangerous, especially in these days.
Yeah, those and those the 4-wheel trikes are just as dangerous because they've got they've got a solid axle. So those axles, you know, on the back, they don't turn very well. You know, they go in a nice straight line, but I'll tell you, I had a lot of great times with. I had a lot of rentals in my life. How did you treat your rentals?
As fast as I could.
I'll never forget. I had a. Let's see, what was it? It was an MX-6. It was a Mazda MX-6, and I would take that car. I don't remember why my car was out of commission. I rented the car for a week. I'm working in construction. I'm working on a construction site. The site was muddy. It was hilly. They were doing grading.
Oh my gosh.
I took that car and I went with my buddy Bill Fody. We jumped. We jumped. We thought we would jump the hill like a ramp. We ended up jumping the hill and landing on it and not having any traction because this front wheel drive car was teetering on it, but basically landed on the hill and with the front wheels off the ground. So then, since I was also the heavy equipment operator, I had my buddy Bill get in the car while I went up with the backhoe and a chain, and pulled it off the mountain. And we did that more than once. That rental, if anybody's ever has a thought of, hey, I'm going to get a rental car because it's cheap and they probably take good care of it.
Yes.
Yeah, they may take good maintenance for it, but I guarantee you, one person along the way has probably treated it like
the wear and tear on those things is horrible. That reminded me of a popular vehicle that they thought everybody more or less thinks it's a 1970 vehicle, but in actuality, it was a 1969 Charger. It was orange. And when you said jumping, that's the first thing that came to mind. The General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard came to mind, which was a 70s show. Yep, but that was, and there was like 250 to 300 of those vehicles that were wrecked in doing those jumps and stuff. And so, can you imagine?
Same thing with all of them with the
jumps and the damage
and they would put them back together, and half of them weren't even, they didn't even have engines in them. There were some there's some footage. I don't remember if it was Knight Rider or Cannonball Run or Smoking the Bandit or it might have very well been Dukes of Hazzard, but there's some footage of people zooming in on YouTube, of people zooming in on the cars and showing that it was just a shell of a car. It was no engine. There were basically cables pulling the thing up a ramp or whatever. And they did that a lot. They did that a lot with those cars.
To this day, even though there was 200, 300 of them, there's only about 20 of them that exist in various disrepair, stages of disrepair and stuff.
Like the DeLoreans. I mean, there were, I believe there were 5 DeLoreans used on Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
And I mean, they're all accounted for, but a couple of them were in bad shape for a while, because it's like with everything else. I got to tell you, and I'll go ahead and do my usual segue to something else not related. Whether it's a car or anything else, there is a time, and I'll use the example of my Mac Plus, my computer, my Mac. I bought it in 1986. In 1986, that thing was over. It was thousands of dollars. I mean, I remember it was $4,000 just to buy a 5 megabyte hard drive, external hard drive for it. Well, so future goes on, technology as it is. All of a sudden, it's not worth garbage. They're throwing those things in bins. They're not worth $5 or $10, the Macs. And now, that that's how the curve goes. Right now, those things, they're selling for anywhere between $400 and $800.
Yep.
I mean, nowhere near the original price, but it is a collector's item, and that's how it is with everything. The same thing happened with the DeLoreans. The DeLoreans, after a while, they became practically worthless shortly thereafter. I mean, well, think about it. In the 1990s, how much would you pay for a 78 Corolla? Practically worth it. However, you Now, all of a sudden, 50 years later, if you find a Corolla in mint condition, well, maybe not that one. I mean, there's certain cars that just never hold their value. But
Hey, I can honestly say that in 1982, I bought a Datsun B210 right off the showroom.
Yeah,
$6,000. I paid cash for it. I mean, my dad gave me the money, and I went and paid cash for it. But $6,000 for pretty decent little car. It was a little tin can, you know, but no roll up. I mean, roll up windows, no electric windows, but $6,000. So.
Speaking of, in fact, here's one. Frankie brought up another memory of mine. Here's a good one. My wife took kids to school, came home a few hours later with a new car that I couldn't haul lumber in. So I had to stop everything, find a truck, and buy it. Okay, Frankie, I will say this. And I wish I had a picture of it, but I do have witnesses. You can haul lumber in any car. We were talking earlier about my Trans Am,
and I have pictures.
A very similar car, a Ford Probe, 1988 Ford Probe. All right, very similar. I did have the spoiler on it. All right, it had the hatchback. It basically had the one long glass on the back. This is a front-wheel drive car. In 1992, we're going just a little over the 80s, but it was a 1988 car, so it's in the realm. In 1992, I was preparing for Hurricane Andrew, and I brought on that car the following. I needed cement for a concrete for a job I was doing. I was going to put that away, and I figured if I'm going to the depot anyway, I might as well. So I brought in 800 pounds of cement, brought 10 80-pound bags inside the trunk. Okay, already 800 pounds in that car bottomed out the springs. I closed the lid, and I'm not done yet. I closed the lid, and I put 15 3/4 inch. Now, most of you guys out there, many of you guys are woodworkers. How much does a 4x8 sheet of plywood weigh? We all know it to weigh about anywhere between 90 and 110 pounds. 3/4 inch CDX ply. So you figure somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 extra pounds. So I put in close to 3,000 pounds total because I also had lumber on top of that and everything. I strapped that to the top. It was on the spoiler,
gosh,
and on the just past the windshield, there was the part that was metal of the roof. Well, basically it somehow distributed the weight. I was nervous because
I was blankets or anything down.
What?
Did you put any blankets down or anything? Just set it up on top of there?
Nope. I figured just the wood. My neighbor Steve and Lydia, they both saw this. They both saw me arriving. I think they had pictures, but they both saw me arriving with 15 sheets of plywood. And then after Steve helped me unload it, we popped the hood and saw the trunk full of bags of cement, of concrete. Cement, Portland cement. And well, that was an interesting and something I'd never done again. Well,
not that you'll admit, huh?
I've overloaded many a trailer that I've pulled with not enough, but I've never done that again specifically. And I got to tell you, it was a fun story, and thank God it didn't crack the rear window. But that window's pretty freaking beefy anyway. But and part of the structure of the car, so
wow.
I wouldn't expect it to crack. But yeah, Frankie reminded me of that with his thing.
See, I take and I open up the trunk. Now this is in my Ford Focus, 2013 Ford Focus.
Yeah.
I open up the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
I flip the back seats forward.
Yep.
And I can put a 2x4 straight in there, all the way to the front. And I can put a stack of 2x4s like that,
Yep.
9, 10, 12 2x4s.
Yep.
And
I used to do that with the Trans Am. The Trans Am, I'd pop the back seats forward. I'd put the front seat tilted all the way back. So with the back seats forward and the front seat laying on top of them back, I could fit 10-foot 2x4s all the way through that car.
Yeah.
Those are great times.
Yeah.
But ruined my cars. You see, Alex, my buddy Alex, who's my cousin Alex, is just probably right now cringing because he's very, very meticulous about. He's got a truck to haul stuff like that, but God forbid put a French fry in one of the nicer cars that he has, like that Jeep that I showed you. That
comes apart, huh?
Well, let's just say it's sacrilege.
What year? What year was that DeLorean? Was it 1985?
It was an 85. It was an 85 DeLorean. Yep. Let's see here. We got Aussie Man saying, in my youth, Dad told me to stop parking on the driveway or he'd sell it to the scrap man. After I got home, searching every scrap dealer in the district.
Oh, my God.
He told me he parked it behind the garage and I never parked that way again. Yeah. It's funny you say that. My grandfather did the same thing to me with my bicycle. He said he'd sell it. And if I ever left it out in the porch again. And sure enough, he took it, he put it in the back. Thank God he didn't sell it, but he was capable of it. My grandfather Mario, he was a tough old, incredible. Yeah. So let's see here. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, the cost of that plywood could now buy the car you hauled it. Yeah. Yep. Practically, yeah. It's ridiculous how much the price.
I've been collecting pallet wood even more so lately.
Well, eventually, pretty soon, I'll. Again, after I start building, one of the things I plan on investing in is a sawmill because eventually I'm going to finish the house and I'm going to be working in the wood shop and. I've got a lot of wood on the property and either I'll buy a property with wood on it or I'll talk to some lumber mills and see if they can deliver logs directly. And because I wouldn't mind sawing my own lumber and drying my own lumber because it's
you're going to have to get a red flannel shirt though if you do that.
I actually have a standing order. I got a standing order for my kids. Asked me, they asked me last year, Dad, what do you want for Christmas? Because they never know what I want. Because anything I want, I just buy myself what I want. It's not like, and I don't really have. When you get to be our age, there's not much you want.
Contrary. I want it all.
Yeah, I don't want for much. I want time. You know what I want? I want time. Somebody give me another 10, 20, 30 years. I passed my good years past my lifetime. Or youth. I'll take youth. I'll take time. Anything else? It's just fluff. So my kids asked me what I want, and I said, give me flannel shirts. I want flannel shirts. That's my standing order for. Yep. So I've got about 8 of them. Between my wife and myself buying them and the kids, I've got a bunch of flannel shirts and I'm going to continue collecting them because now here's the thing. You see me wearing black today because it's a cool night. It's a t-shirt still. Mm-hmm. If I wear a flannel shirt here, I'd be drenched.
Right.
This is Miami. It's super cool today. 77 degrees.
We keep our air conditioner going all the time, and we keep the house cool in the winter. And there's something about aging; your body starts to get cooler. And for some reason, flannel shirts and blankets when I'm in front of the computer,
Yeah.
Really go well. And I'm in Texas. It gets 110 degrees in the summer here, you know.
Oh, yeah, you don't have to tell me.
But remember, that's why I like to say two old guys talking about the 70s and 80s. No, two old guys in their 50s and
You'll get it
60s
right one of
talking
these
about
days.
the 70s and 80s. Yes.
Yeah.
Two old guys.
Yeah. We are two old guys.
Old guys.
Meanwhile, half of our audience is older than we are, and they're going, "What the hell are you talking old?" But yeah, that's usually the way it works.
I don't know some of them, but the ones I know, I think I'm older than they are.
Yeah, my cousin Israel says I got to sing the lumberjack song. No.
Yes.
Ready? I would no. Copyright.
And a 1 and a 2 and a 3.
Yeah. I don't. I want to stay monetized. Unfortunately, that I got to make concessions.
You can sing 3 bars, can't you?
Yeah.
Just joking.
I'd rather eat 3 bars. I'm hungry.
There you go.
Chocolate. Anyway. So yeah. Let's see. So cars. Other than that, what are the things do you remember about the cars? I'll give you one. Have you ever owned a car with the and I remember mine well with the gas tank cap in the license plate?
I want to say yes. I don't remember what car it was.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I really remember, though, that I still have is that one right there. It has a turn gas cap on the back of it, which is really cool. My I think it was my 73 Plymouth Satellite had a license plate that you would pull back and you would put the gas. I think that was the one. That was
my Monte Carlo had it. My 76 Monte Carlo had the gas cap in the thing. And I'll remember my dad's one of my dad's Jaguars had the gas cap. I don't remember if it was driver's or I think it was the driver's side, right on the hood you're driving, it's right up just in front of the windshield.
Right in front of the cowl.
Right in front of the cowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then let's see, 71 Camaro, Dave Hart's 71 Camaro had the gas cap behind the plate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Front seats were bench seats and not bucket seats. Oh, that's a good one.
True.
Mitchell just brought up a good one. I had a buddy of mine, my buddy, John Applebaum. Oh man, he and I were electronics. We were complete nerds in high school. He had a 72 Buick Lesabre. For those of you unfamiliar with the Lesabre or the 72 Buick Lesabre, I wouldn't call it a car. It's a boat. If you thought that my Monte Carlo, as certainly the and I'll pop up a picture of it again. Let me see. I'll get on that in a second. If you thought the hood of the Monte Carlo was huge, and it is, because I could open up that hood, and thank God for the springs, I could open up that hood, and you could have 4 people inside the thing working on the engine. If you thought that was big, you don't know what big is until you saw this 72 Lesabre. It had basically a couch for a front seat and a couch for the back seat. That thing was monstrous. We would fit 4 of us, and still the driver had comfortable room to maneuver. 4 in the front seat. The thing was a monster. It was a boat, and I'll never forget. I mean, we always worked on that. That engine was just, he said, "Oh, listen to that engine. It's in great shape." Look, that engine was so big, you could have probably, I wouldn't doubt that if 5 of the 8 cylinders misfired, that thing was so monstrous that it would still power that car. I mean, it was a monstrous car. I'll never forget it. White. with the three little, Buick little fins on the thing. I mean, it was incredible. There's Alex. Prairie Schooner. Yeah. Man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, that thing, I'll never forget that. But riding in that car. Now, again, Miami, his car was white, but the black dashboard and the black seats did not help the heat, And again, again in 72,
no air conditioning, right?
Well, he had air conditioning in his car. No, and the best part is, and I put light profanity on here so I could say this. It had the ball cooler air conditioners.
Oh man,
those were the best. You had air conditioners on the thing, and you had the air conditioner down here that you could aim directly to cool your seat. Your
seat, yeah. So wait a second. So we can swear?
I'd prefer not to, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it was something else. It was something else. I mean, it was it was you remember, of course, all the cars of that era had. I mean, my Monte Carlo was one of the first ones to have the shoulder strap, the shoulder seat belts.
Yes. Yeah.
Because back in 72, shoulder seat belts, forget that.
The Mustang all it had was the clip around
the bottom,
and that's it.
And they all had that little GM button on the clip.
Yep.
And that's
mine's got a Ford button. It's a little round button.
Well, if I remember, I don't know, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong on this, but were all the different GM cars, did they all have the same GM buckle? It said GM? Because I don't remember seeing that early on a Chevy buckle, a Pontiac buckle, a Buick buckle. It was all GM.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm pretty sure I remember, because I know that my Chevy Monte Carlo had GM keys. The round and the square keys said GM on it. It did not say Chevy or Monte Carlo or anything like that. I know later on everybody got their own emblem, but that early on, I think since GM owned all those cars, I mean, all those, Yeah, it was.
I do think that a lot of them actually had no emblem on them, and they were like generic seat.
Possible. I seem to remember always GM. But how about the speaking of 70s and 80s? Remember Lee Iacocca and the
yes.
And when Chrysler just about bought it. Filed for bankruptcy, and I remember as a kid I was thinking, oh, they filed for bankruptcy, no more Chrysler cars, and all of a sudden, not only did they turn it around, they
rescued it big time.
Yeah, the wing windows. There you go, Dave. The wing windows on the front doors were cool. Yep,
that's right. That's right.
I had a Volkswagen Bug, a 70. I want to say it's a 78. I had a 78 white Volkswagen Bug. Oh, the Volkswagen Bugs were something else. The originals, not this new stuff. The originals, with the little triangle windows on it. In fact, speaking of Volkswagens, my cousin's son, also my cousin's son Simon, has a beautiful Volkswagen van with the they had the little
do me a favor.
I would call them air conditioners or whatever. You got that on yours?
Yeah, do me a favor. Right
there you go. There you go.
Vent windows, I might add. Vent
windows. I love those. Those things were. Whenever I had a car, whenever I drove a car with one of those on it, it was just, that was fantastic. Yeah, you're driving on the highway, you just turn those all the way so they funnel the air in.
And that's good too, because that thing doesn't have air conditioning.
Yep. A 69,
let's keep talking about it.
69 bus. That's what it is.
Maybe it'll get put back together and be running by the time the show's done. Okay.
I hope so. Steve had a wonderful 8-track player added to his car.
Nice.
I I had a cassette deck myself, and I did the same thing. I added a 8-track, and I added a CB underneath. So I had a little a double mount. So I had my 8-track player, but I also had underneath it, and it was the best because not only did I do the CB stuff,
breaker 9 breaker.
Not only did I know all my 10 codes, but I plugged into the back jack. This is what I loved about all CB mobile CB rigs. It had the little auxiliary jack for a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And you would basically, I would drive around. I would have a horn as opposed to a speaker. I have the horn in the hood of my first car. My Monte Carlo had the horn in there, and I would play the musical sound and Dixie, and I had those digital music things. So I'd play Ice Cream Man songs and throw kids off, and they'd be all pissed off when they see me instead of the Ice Cream Man. My buddy Howard, I'll never forget. My buddy Howard Shank. I wish I knew where he was. I lost touch with him years ago. My buddy Howard I'd be driving along. This is on little roads in the not main roads, but little roads in the city suburbs. We'd be driving around. Anytime we'd see a person, he would get on there, and he had a great voice for this, and he would go, "Woo!" And
again, illegal.
Oh man, again, illegal stuff that we did when we were kids that we didn't even know was illegal 40 years ago. Goodness gracious. I can't even,
70 to 80.
My handle, Alex was asking me what my handle is. My handle was the Beetle. And almost everybody in the CB world, when they didn't meet me, they thought I owned a Volkswagen Bug because I called myself the Beetle. And how I got that name was probably the stupidest story, but I'll go ahead and repeat it. I was fishing around for a handle and go, God, what do I call myself? What do I call myself? What do I call myself? And I owned a black Trans Am. So I go, black Trans Am, BT, Beetle. Beetle. And that's how I came up with the Beetle.
The Beetle. Hobby the Beetle.
No connection whatsoever to a Volkswagen Bug. Just, it was a black Trans Am, BT, and it sounded like Beetle. I thought it was a really cool handle, and that's what I called myself. And for years, that was what I was.
Let me say something here.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50 years, not 40. It's 70s, 80, 90s, 2000, 2010. 10s. Isn't that 50 years?
No. I was 15 years old-ish, 15, 16, 17. I'm 55 now. 55 minus 15, 40 years. I was mistaken originally when I said it was 30 years, but it's really.
But I'm 60.
You're 60, so yeah.
And in the 70s.
For you, it's 35 years. For me, it's
wait a second.
Sorry. For you, it's 45 years. For me, it's
okay. All right.
For me, it's like 38, 39 years. 39 years. It's incredible how time freaking flies.
And that's the point. Yes.
Yeah. Dave Hart says he had an 84 Ford Ranger mini pickup, and his handle was the Lone Ranger. See, that was a cool name. Especially since it matches. The kind of horn on the jet. Yep, that kind of horn was on the General Lee. That's exactly right.
It was very popular in the 70s. Very, very popular.
Yeah.
Especially hooking it up to the CB.
The horn was a bar on the inside of the steering wheel instead of pressing the middle of the wheel. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Remember that bar that went almost all around. You could hit it with your thumb anywhere. Beep 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 beep. Oh man, that old steering wheel. I had let's see, which car was it? It was my Astro van. I had an '88 Astro van. All right, and that Astro van it got cold one day, and apparently the design was between. It was a black Astro van between the heat shrinking the plastic and then it being cold. That horn basically it shrunk that little plastic thing. And I'll never forget. It was like one day I woke up in the morning. I go, "What the hell? What idiot is honking the horn?" It was locked on. It was just on. It was the most annoying thing in the world. And it was, sure enough, it was the cold that it shrunk the thing and it made contact. I had to rip that thing off and then put a little extra spring in it. But the year 2000 was 21 years ago. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Hard to believe. But folks, we are past the bewitching hour. Next week on the show, we're going to be talking about 70s and 80s kids shows. We're talking like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Electric Company, Zoom. I mean, everything and anything having to do with 70s and 80s kids shows. And the following week after that, we're going to be talking about going to the movies. We're going to be talking about different movies, and we're going to be talking about going to the movies, all the different things that happened in the 70s and 80s. So, folks, thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful week. See you all again next week for kids shows of the 70s and 80s when we were kids. See you all. Same bat time, same bat channel. Good night,
everyone.